Welcome! If your house has fire blocking, running wires through it can seem tricky. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to get your electrical and media wires through with ease. Now, one way to accomplish this is to cut your drywall just above your fire blocking, but that requires you to patch the drywall, which is really hard to make it look perfect again. I prefer to use a media plate, which gains you access to the fire blocking. I will show you how you can either use a long flexible drill bit or your drill with a spade bit to make your holes to run your wires through the fire blocking. So keep watching if you want to learn how to get through your fire blocking. I'll show you footage from 2 different rooms where I mounted a TV on the wall, and we'll go over all the steps without having to put extra holes in your drywall. After that, I'll demonstrate how to pull your wires through the fire blocking, making sure your installation has a clean finished look. Let's go. So the media plate I use is from peerless-av. For a quick unboxing, it comes with this media plate and this electrical box for the receptacle, which attaches with these 4 screws. What's cool about this media plate, it comes with a surge protected receptacle. The paperwork comes with this actual size template you can use to mark the drywall for your cutout. At Home Depot, I noticed you can get a media plate with a non-surge protected receptacle already, or one without a receptacle, but they do sell a 15 amp surge protected receptacle separately you could just buy and use. This option costs way less than a peerless-av one, but if you are going for a less costly option, this would work just fine. Now listen to this talk through planning out the media plate and 2-gang low voltage mounting bracket location.
I wanted to put everything over here, but I'm gonna have to put it over here now, and the reason why is, you come around this corner, you can see this is an interior wall, but then it turns into an exterior wall. So because that's an exterior wall, over here, I could put that recessed media plate here, but I would have to chisel away at the concrete block to accept the depth of the outlet box part of the recessed media plate. But that's a little bit too much work. So if I put the low voltage bracket here and send it up to the recessed media plate on this side, it'll be on an interior wall, and I'll have plenty of room. So I don't feel like chiseling away at cement block. Now the only problem is when you come in this door, and you look this way, you're gonna see that recessed media plate. So I'm probably gonna have to paint the outer rim same color as the wall paint. Something else I wanted to point out is I have a light switch here and an outlet. So I took a measurement, this is 32 inches. When you come around the corner here, take the measurement from here, 32 inches lands about right here. So I'm gonna be sending the wires up about here, and I think I'm gonna clear that light switch, but it's just something else I wanted to point out that you have to consider, what's on the other side of the wall. So before I keep going, I gotta find the fire block. Whenever you have studs, they put a piece of wood going horizontal so that if there's a fire in the wall, it can't get to the ceiling in the attic and start spreading to the rest of the house. So you always have to drill a hole through that fire block to run your wires to the recessed media plate. So I kind of want to see where it is. It's a lot easier sliding the stud finder up and down with this wall plate out of the way. So my stud finder is saying it's pretty wide, but I don't believe that that's true, but we'll see. I'll cut an exploratory hole and look down to see exactly where the fire block wood is going, because I want to be able to cut the recessed media plate hole in an area where it's not going to be above the screen, of course. So to determine exactly where that piece of wood is, I'll do a little hole so I can look down and see, and then I'll do the bigger hole after that. At least it was easier to slide this up and down. Can't do this if this wall plate was in the way. There's no way it's this wide, but who knows, maybe they put 2 pieces of wood. We'll find out.
So next, my wife helped me hang the TV so I can put painter's tape marking the outer edge of the TV. I normally wouldn't do this step, but with my stud finder giving me weird readings, I'm being extra cautious before I start cutting holes in the wall. This doesn't have to be exact, just good enough to give me an outline of the TV. I also marked where the TV is thicker because I want the media plate to be above that. It seems like I have just enough room and everything's clearing where the media plate's going to be. Here's a shot of the TV off. As you can see, it does barely fit in there. But I'm going to cut an exploratory hole and really see if that fire blocking is really that wide or 2 pieces. So next, I use my level and I put the top of the template paper for the media plate against it. Once I have it level and positioned between the top piece of tape, which represents the top of the TV, and where I think the fire blocking is, I put push pins to hold it. I tried drawing along the paper, but it was hard to keep the line straight. So instead, I use a pencil to mark the 4 corners. Then I use my level to connect the corners. This was much easier. Next, I use my jab saw to cut an exploratory hole. This will let me verify the position of the fire blocking, but still allow me to realign the media plate to my most ideal position. Normally, I drill a screw in the drywall and use it as a handle so I don't drop the piece I'm cutting down in the wall. If that happens, it could get in the way when I go to drill the holes for the wires. But there was luckily a piece of paper backing that wasn't cut all the way through, holding onto it, so I was able to grab it and pull it out. Now that I have my exploratory hole, I stick my tape measure down it to measure where the fire blocking really is. As I was expecting, it was not where the stud finder indicated. It was much lower, and I use a piece of painter's tape to mark it.
So there's nothing here. I feel like the seam between 2 pieces of drywall right here, so I don't know why it's triggering my stud finder. But I take my tape measure, stick it down the hole, and 28 inches down, I hit something. And if I take my stud finder, it does say something's in this area. I don't know why they would have a fire block so low. The only thing I can think of is because there's an outlet here. When I did this light switch, it was about right here. But I've never encountered one this low in my house yet. Now, when I make this hole bigger for the media plate, I like to take my phone and I can shoot a picture up with the flash and down, and I can really verify what the stud finder is finding. So that's what I'll do. Now, some people, when they hit the fire block, they cut a hole here in the drywall, use their drill to drill the holes, and then patch the wall. But I have a special tool, I don't need to do that. So let's get to the next step and cut this hole wider so we can take some pictures.
I'm just repeating what I did the first time, using push pins to hold the paper template, using a pencil to mark the corners, and then my level to connect those marks to make the outline. As you can see, now I know the fire blocking is much lower, I've repositioned the template a little lower and to the right. And finally, use my drywall jab saw to cut the hole for the media plate. With the smaller hole there, I used that to grab the piece of drywall from falling in the wall. So now I take my pictures and this is what they revealed. The right side has nothing, but the left side has those coax and Cat5e wires. This is looking down at the fire blocking, and you can see one hole is already drilled into it. And looking up, you can see the coax cable and Cat5e wires coming from the attic, and an extra hole filled in with fire barrier sealant. Here's a shot of the drywall toggle anchors I used, clamped onto the drywall. Originally, I was going to use my flex auger bit, but then I realized it's not going to drill a hole wide enough for my HDMI cable connector. At Home Depot and Electrical Aisle where the electrical tools are, they do have different sizes, and one with a wider diameter auger head, but you'll still get to see me use my flex bit later in the video. So I go with a plan B instead, and I use these bit extensions. They have this quick release that I use to lock in a second extension, and then my 1-inch spade bit. As you can see, the 1-inch spade bit is wide enough for the HDMI connector. I'm going to stick my drill with my arm in the wall and drill the holes. Watch me do that next. So I carefully maneuver the drill in the media plate cutout hole. I spin it around and I set it down on the fire blocking. I next clamp a flashlight to the side of the cutout, and then I use my iPod Touch to align my drill. I'm looking at the screen, making sure I'm positioning the spade bit in the center of the fire blocking. Then I start drilling. Drilling through an 1.5-inch piece of wood takes some time, so you let the spade bit do all the work, just giving it a light push until you punch through. Here's a shot so you can see how it looks after the first hole. So now I just repeat the process. I use my camera looking at the screen to position the spade bit where I want it, then move it out of the way to drill the next hole. It's really not that hard. You just want to make sure you're drilling in the middle of the 2x4 so you don't pooch through the side of the drywall. Here's a shot so you can see how it looks after drilling the second hole. I'm going to fast forward the video for this third hole, but for the fourth hole you're going to see me use my flex bit. I wanted to mention for this third hole, it took a little angling of the drill because the drill battery was hitting those toggle anchors. For this fourth hole, I removed the flashlight that I clamped to the side of the media plate cutout. Then I maneuver my drill out of the wall. I could have removed the extensions to make this easier, but with a little twisting and turning you can get it out. Now with my flex bit attached to my drill, I verify that I'm drilling where I want the next hole with the camera, and I drill the fourth hole. I don't need 4 holes, but I'll use this smaller hole for the coax cable, the 2 other holes for the HDMI and Cat5e patch cord, and leave the 4th hole as a spare in case I want to run another HDMI cord or anything else in the future. So now it's time to install the 2-gang low voltage mounting bracket. I want to line it up with the adjacent box, so after removing the plate, I use my level to line up the actual cutout hole from that box and draw a level line. I then place the bracket backwards and use my straight pick to mark through the holes it has pre-drilled in it. Then use my level to connect those marks to have my cutout outline. I take my drywall jab saw and make quick work of it and cut out my hole. I next install the low voltage mounting bracket. I turn the screw by hand because these brackets are made out of plastic and they use a straight edge screw, not a Phillips screw. As you turn the screw, the swing clamp flips up and clamps to the back of the drywall. I go ahead and put that other plate back on. Now let me show you how I pull the wires through the fire blocking. After clamping my flashlight so I can see in the wall, I take my flex rod and use my camera to find the smaller hole I want to use first and insert the flex rod in that hole. I next go down to the low voltage bracket and grab the flex rod and feed it up and out of the bracket. I next take the coax adapter that was on the old one that I removed and use it to keep debris from getting inside the coax cable connector as I pull it through the fire blocking. After tying my pull line to the flex rod, I tie the other end to the coax adapter, which is also helping me have something to tie the line to. Then I add electrical tape, folding the end of the tape for easier removal. I am now ready to pull the coax cable up to the media plate. I start by pushing everything in the wall, then get on my step stool and slowly pull the flex rod up. It needs a little wiggle to get through the hole in the fire blocking, but I easily get it fed through the wall. I'm now ready to repeat the process for the CAD 5e cord next. After sticking the flex rod through the next hole, I again pull it out of the wall. This time I use electrical tape to wrap around the wire and plug to protect it, and tape it directly to the flex rod, folding over the end of the tape for easier unwinding. I again push it through the wall, then back up on the step stool, pulling it through the fire blocking and out the media plate cutout. Here's a shot after the first two pulls. Now it's time for the final wire. Let's feed the HDMI cable through the wall. You guys know the drill by now. I insert the flex rod in the chosen hole, pull it out of the bracket. I again use electrical tape to attach the HDMI cable directly to the rod, making sure I protect the connector by wrapping the tape over it. I pull it up through the fire blocking and I'm finished pulling the 3 wires through the wall. Okay, here's how to install the media plate. I feed the 3 wires through the opening and just pull them through. As you're watching me securing the media plate and wrapping this first one up, please hit the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe if you like this video. I next tuck the electrical wires in the wall and insert the media plate in its cutout. Then I take my drill and tighten the screws 95% of the way in. The wings on the back of the media plate clamp onto the back of the drywall, and that's what secures it. I use my Phillips screwdriver to tighten the screws the last 5%. This allows me to feel when it's secure, but not too tight. I next give the plate edge a quick painting, because as you know I wasn't able to install it on the other side. Let's move on to the media wires below. I start with the HDMI cable. I plug it into the back of the wall plate, and then use my electrical tape just to make sure it stays plugged in. I push the excess HDMI cable in the wall, I hand start the 2 screws, and then I use my drill to screw them 95% in. I next push the excess coax cable and CAD 5e wire in the wall. Then I feed them through the recess insert. I'm going to use a 90-degree coax F-type adapter to make it easier to make the connection. I hand tighten the 2 screws, and then I use my drill to screw them 95% in. After using my Phillips screwdriver to tighten the 4 screws 98% tight, I feed the wires through the plate and use it to align everything, then tighten the screws completely, finally installing the 4 screws that secure the plate. I want to match the 2 wall plates, so I switch out the one for the CAD 5e and coax cable to a matching nylon 3/8 larger one. I plug in the RJ45 connector, then screw tight the coax cable, and that's it. The media wires are run through the wall, and that part of the project is now complete. And that's how you get through fire blocking. Stick around to watch this next install if you would like to see another example, since every situation can be a little different. I was able to get some really clear shots inside the wall, so you get a great view of the process. Let's take a look inside, and what's up with that footprint? Who steps on drywall before installing it? The studs are where I was expecting, and you can see the coax and CAD 5e wire running through the fire block. Looking up, I don't see any surprises if I decide to bring the electrical from the attic. I dry fit the media plate to check it fits. Looking up, I can see the electrical for the receptacles, so I need to be careful when I drill through the fire block. Let's go drill our first hole. This is easy to do because of the large cutout for the media plate. I can stick my whole drill in the wall and use a 1-inch spade bit to drill the holes. You will see later shots of the drill in the wall when I drill the other holes. A drill fits in the media plate without the ability to be taken apart, but since mine can be, that's what I do to insert it in the wall. And then I attach my spade bit that has a long shaft. Okay, let's start drilling. You can see that first hole we drilled. I'm just going to drill 3 more holes between that one and the one that has the coax cable and the CAD 5e wire going through. We're going to next pull those wires back up. You will see why as we go through this. First, need to cut these zip ties, so I reach up with my diagonal cutting pliers and cut this lower one. The second one is much easier to reach into the media plate cutout. It's a much bigger hole to reach in. All that's left is to untangle them from the cut zip ties and pull them up through the media plate. Then I peel them apart. The reason why I'm separating them is because I'm going to run the coax cable directly to the TV and then have the CAD 5e wire go back down inside the cabinet. So I place the coax cable over the TV mount to keep it out of the way, and I decided, now that these wires are out of my way, I want to drill one final hole. I'm not taking any chances that I regret not having enough, and this is the moment to do it. After drilling the final hole, I remove my drill out of the wall. I'm going to feed the Cat5e wire through the hole I just drilled. So I just reach into the media plate cutout and drop it in. It takes a little wiggling and maneuvering, but I get it in the hole easily and feed it down. Let me show you what it looks like from under the fire block. Let's go in the wall and look up. You can see the blue wire coming down and it's waiting for me. And I just need to reach in and pull it out. Here's one last shot of it going through the fire block from the top and how it's coming from the attic. I hope this gives you a clear understanding how to do this. I decided I wanted to finish installing the low voltage mounting bracket. So I match up the bracket to the electrical box and make my pencil mark. I clamp it to the drywall and then I trace my initial lines to mark my cutout, double checking that the bracket is still level. I remove the bracket, then I extend the initial lines with my level to fully trace out the cutout. As I mentioned earlier, I hadn't purchased this bracket at first while I was deciding my final plan, so this is why I didn't fully cut this out until now. All that's left is to use my oscillating multi-tool and cut this out. Watch how I use one hand to hold it and my second hand to brace it as I make my cuts. I put my second hand on the wall and use my thumb to precisely position it. I try it out and it fits perfectly. Now this video is just a process how to get through the fire blocking, but I'll link in the end and in the description both videos with the full installation, which includes the electrical and mounting of the TVs. Okay, let's pull all the other media wires. I insert my fish rod into the same hole to keep the network wires together, add my thin wire to the tip to have a loop to tie off of. I picked up this 15-foot Cat5e Ethernet cable, and I wish Home Depot would sell black, not yellow, and attach it to the loop by bending it over and taping it with electrical tape. I pull it up through the fire block and unwind the electrical tape. I leave it draped over the TV mount just like with the coax cable to keep it out of my way, but positioned ready to be plugged into the TV once it's hung. Here's a shot from the top and the bottom so you can clearly see the run. I take a look to make sure nothing is tangled and it's where I want it. Okay, let's pull the 4 HDMI cords. I don't need to pull my thinner wire loop off, I just maneuver it through the hole. I'm going to pull 2 HDMI cords at a time through 2 different holes. I'm going to use these 10-foot 8K nylon braided, universally compatible HDMI cables. I purchased them from Amazon. Now check out how I staggered the HDMI plugs so they can be pulled through the hole. I make sure one is lower and one is higher so they don't go through the hole at the same time. And then I wrap the electrical tape around the plugs to hold it in place. I make the pull. Here's a shot of them slipping through the hole. You see, by staggering the HDMI plugs, they pull right through. I just gotta unwind the tape. I take another look up the wall just to make sure the wires are where I want them and not tangled on the electrical wires or something else I don't want. Everything looks good. Let's pull the next 2. Up they go. Now the reason why I'm pulling 4 HDMI wires is my TV has 4 HDMI ports, so I want one for each. They have HDMI switchers, so you can just run one wire in the wall, but I prefer to run 4 separate HDMI wires and switch the input on the TV. At the end of this video, you will see with this TV, you don't even need to do that. But either way works. I take another peek up and make sure nothing's tangled up. Everything's looking good. Let me show you how I run extra pull strings. I do this in case in the future, I need to run another wire in the wall. So I already pulled one. This is the second one you see me pulling now. I double check it's not tangled up, which is extra important because if I do use them, I don't want whatever I'm pulling to get caught up. To recap, I tape the pull strings with painter's tape. You'll see me wind them in a loop after I finish. Here are the 4 HDMI cables, the Cat5e Ethernet cable coming from my switch in the laundry room. I'll send an internet connection up through this yellow wire. Up here I have 2 pull strings taped here, and the rest of the media wires waiting here. Let's install the low voltage bracket next. I start by pulling all the wires through the bracket. I'm feeding the HDMI cables through the right one, the blue Ethernet cable through the middle, and the yellow cable through the left side. I also feed the 2 pull strings through the left side, and re-tape them to the wall to keep them out of the way. Next, I level the bracket and screw it in. As you tighten the screws, the mounting wings, sometimes called flaps, clamp against the drywall securing the bracket. I check the level one last time, the bubble's right in the middle. Let me show you what we're going to install next. This is called a Levington 1-gang Decora Quick Port 4-port insert in white. And I'm going to use 4 of these quick port HDMI connectors. They clip on like this, and you'll see me plug in the 4 HDMI cords to the back. Let's go install all of this. The way you assemble this is, you insert these HDMI connectors on the bottom, and then rock up, and they clip into place. It's as easy as that. Now whatever device I want to send up to the TV, I plug into these 4 ports. Gaming consoles, streaming device, DVD player, if you're still even using one of those. So after plugging in the 4 HDMI cords, I push the wires in the wall, then pull up from the media plate cutout to take up the slack. and it's ready to be screwed in. So I screw in the insert and we have one of the 3 completed. Here's a shot from the side so you can see how it looks installed. Sometimes I would use black electrical tape to make sure it doesn't get unplugged, but the back wall is holding them in just fine. Let's install the next insert. So this is exactly like what we just installed, but it's a 2-port insert this time, and I used a snap-in blank for future spare addition if needed. Then I install a Cat 5e jack on the bottom and the blank on the top, and screw it in. Let's install the last piece. I'm going to use this recessed Decora insert. This is what it looks like, and feed the 2 pull strings and the yellow Ethernet wire that's going up to the TV through it. You will see me plug the yellow wire directly into the jack to bring hardwired internet to the TV for now. Now that everything is fed through the recessed Decora insert, I screw it in with its 2 screws. All that's left is to install the 3-gain Decora wall plate. So I feed the yellow wire and the 2 pull strings through and screw in the 6 screws. Check out how I leave the pull strings neatly wound up in a loop. So with everything completed here, I installed IKEA cabinets in this room, so I plugged in the yellow Ethernet cable once that was completed. Let's finish the media plate. So now all that's left is to feed the media wires through it. So I start with the 4 HDMI cables, then the Ethernet and coax cable, finally the 2 extra pull strings. I hope you guys are seeing how it's not hard to hide and run your media wires through a wall and fire block. I retaped the pull strings out of my way. Let's secure the media plate next. I tighten 2 of the screws for now, remove the blue tape, and wrap up the 2 pull strings. Next I drape the wires over the TV mount, and here's a shot how this part of the project came out. I hope you guys are gaining your DIY confidence to attempt this project after watching this video. So that's it. Please remember to hit the thumbs up if you like this video, and be sure to subscribe to watch more home DIY videos just like this one. Put any questions in the comments and maybe I can help you with your project. Tap on the links on the screen to check out the full TV wall mount installs. Now that you know how to get through the fire blocking, you'll see how to mount the TV securely, hook up the power, and hardwire it for the internet. Thanks for watching and keep on DIYing. Bye now.